A very warm welcome to APSC bro. Today we are going to do a very important topic. One nation, one election. This is a topic which is in news recently and you must have heard all about it. So in this video we are first going to understand what do we mean by one nation and one election. Once we understand the concept, we are going to first analyze, does India need it? Okay. We'll discuss the advantages and disadvantages and we'll try to find out if we really need it. If the advantages are more than the disadvantages, that means we need it. Okay. Now suppose I need a dress for Diwali. Now this is one thing that I want it, but there is one thing that can I afford that dress. Similarly, even if India wants a one nation, one election system, can India afford it? That is a big question, and we are going to analyze that question in this video. So in this video, we have divided the video into three parts. That is the introduction part, in which we will be understanding the concept, like what is one election and one nation, one election. Okay. In the body of the video, we will be understanding what are the positive. If India suppose goes into the system of one nation, one election, what are the advantages and what are the negatives, like what are the disadvantages of the system. In the end of the video, we'll try to analyze if we can afford that system, and if we can afford it, what is the way forward of going into it. Okay. First thing we are going to understand is the concept. One nation, one election refers to the idea of organizing simultaneous polls for the state assemblies and the Lok Sabha. Now you know that Rajasthan is going into election. Assam went into election in 2021, right? So the Lok Sabha election is due in next year. So we see that the election to the center, that is Lok Sabha, and elections to different states of the country are held in different times of the year or in simultaneous years. Like some states will go into election this year, some will go in next year, some in 2025. So Lok Sabha election, we are going into Lok Sabha election in 2024. Yes, next Lok Sabha election will be in 2028. So we have elections to the Lok Sabha and state assemblies at different times. The system of simultaneous election or one nation, one election is that the election to the center, that is Lok Sabha, and all the states of the country will be held at a single time. That is, if the Lok Sabha election is being held in 2024, all the states of the country will go into election at the same time. That is the whole concept of one nation, one election. Okay, that means one election will be held every 5 years, in which a person will vote for both the center as well as the state assemblies. Okay. Now once we have understood this concept, suddenly why this is so much in news. Okay, this is a concept which has been in has been going on around for a long time. Why suddenly there is all this buzz about this concept? It is so because the union government has constituted a committee under the former president of India, Ramnath Kovind, to look into the feasibility, just to see if we can have it, the feasibility of the system, if India can actually go into one nation, one election. Now we know why this is in news. Now the thing is that, is it an old concept or a new concept? Now if you see from Indian perspective, the system of one nation, one election, that is simultaneous election for both center and state, was in practice in India until 1967. Very interesting. See, after our independence in 1947, all the elections that were held 1952, 1957, 1962 and 1967, all these were simultaneous elections. That is, the election to the center and the state were held together. Okay, the elections were held every 5 years for both center and state. Only in 1968 and 69, what happened is some legislative assemblies of some states got dissolved. Yes, see now Lok Sabha also the tenure is 5 years, every state assembly tenure is 5 years, so we can have a election to both every 5 years. But what will happen if any of the state get dissolved earlier? So the election has to be held at that year itself. Now suppose in 2024 we held a simultaneous election for both center and states. Now suppose suddenly the assembly of Meghalaya or say UP gets dissolved in 2026. That means the election to those states has to occur in 2026. You cannot keep those states without a government till 2028, right? So this cycle broke down in 1968 and 1969 when some state assemblies got dissolved. And once this cycle got disrupted, it was disrupted forever. Since 1967, no simultaneous elections have been held. Moreover, the Lok Sabha was dissolved prematurely. That is, it was supposed to be dissolved in 1972, but it got dissolved in 1971. So the cycle was disrupted all over. Yes, and hence the simultaneous elections became history in India. Now, now we know that the committee has been formed under the former President of India, Ramnath Kovind, recently. But is this concept that after 1967 we can also again go back to the simultaneous elections? Is it a new concept? No, this idea have been banging in the doors of the government many times. Like the Election Commission suggested in 1983 itself that we can have simultaneous elections. The Law Commission headed by Justice P.V. Jivan Reddy in the 178th report in 1999 also stated that we can have simultaneous elections and it will be suitable for us. Even our former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee took up the issue of simultaneous elections to the then Congress President Sonia Gandhi and said that yes, even the Congress President Sonia Gandhi is also open to the idea, but however the idea didn't get into practice. Right? In 2010, BJP leader L.K. Advani met the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and tried to convince him that the simultaneous elections of the country need to be held. Okay, and according to L.K. Advani, even the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, they were Finance Minister and the Prime Minister, they were both agreeing to his idea. However, the idea was dropped due to certain difficulties. Okay, the Law Commission in 1999 by Justice Reddy also recommended going back to the simultaneous elections. The 79 report of Parliamentary Standing Committee in 2015 also suggested the same. Again in 2016, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also suggested that we need to have simultaneous elections. Okay. Again, Niti Aayog in 2017, Law Commission in 2018 reiterated the same idea. So we now understand that this idea, which was in practice in India till 1967, every now and then it was placed before the government in order to initiate the system. However, due to one or the other reason, this was dropped. Okay, the idea was dropped. Now that we have understood what is the system, what is the process of going into one election, one nation, one election, also understanding that it is an idea which many people have supported and suggested from every now and then, we should understand what are the advantages of the system. The biggest advantage of this system is that it will reduce the financial burden. We know conducting an election, let it be a Lok Sabha election or let it be a state election, is a huge burden on the state or the nation's budget, right? This one nation, see, in Lok Sabha polls costed 3870 in 2014, and in 2015 Bihar election it costed 300 crore itself for a single state election. So you see that to conduct Lok Sabha election today in 2023 or 24 and to conduct elections in all the states of the country will be a huge burden. Okay, however, the estimated cost of one nation, one election is merely 4,500, which is much less than conducting elections every year to different states of the country as well as Lok Sabha in different years, right? The first election of Lok Sabha that took place in 1951-52, around 1874, candidates participated and the poll expenses were merely 11 crore. That was simultaneous election. That is, the state and the central election was held together. However, in 2019, you see, 610 political parties got involved and around 9,000 candidates, took part in that. Now, the poll expenses, if you see, every party, when they are taking part in election, will spend a lot of money in campaigning and other expenses, right? It is estimated that in 2019 around 60,000 crore rupees was spent by all the political parties together, which is a huge amount for a developing country like India. Now if this happens every year, see, every year there is a state election, the parties are taking part in that, every year you are losing money. Okay, so if this expense is curtailed to 5 years, that means in every 5 year we are going to spend that money. Obviously this will be a relief for the finance of the nation. Second advantage, it will help us in the better utilization of financial resources. See, every political party, when they are campaigning, when they are contesting the election, they are spending a lot of money. So if there is simultaneous election every 5 years, it will reduce their expenses, which will be again a benefit, which will benefit the whole country, right? Moreover, whenever, see, a small, now big political parties like the Congress or the BJP, now they will have a lot of money with them to play elections every year in different states. However, small political parties won't have that much budget. So simultaneous elections will help these small regional parties to better manage their money or finance, right? Second thing, we all know what is model code of conduct. See, every time there is an election, from a certain period of time before the election till the results are declared, there is a model code of conduct under which there are a lot of restrictions on the government as well as the public. Like the government cannot take any developmental schemes, they cannot take anything which will help them take advantage of their position. Now suppose if the model code of conduct is in practice, the government cannot inaugurate a big project, the government cannot take any developmental projects. So this thing, model code of conduct, in a way stops the development work for a small period of time, right? So every year if there is elections to different states, model code of conducts are applied to those states and the development work in those states gets hampered. Now if there is a simultaneous election every 5 years, model code of conduct will be held only once, will be applied only once in 5 years. So this will help in the development work of the country, because only the development will stop only after 5 years and every year there will be developmental works throughout the nation, right? Second thing, see, whenever there is a election coming up in any state, the government, the ruling party takes part in that. So the big leaders who are also ministers of the government take part in the campaigns, okay, the election rallies and other thing. So one nation and one election will ensure that the continuity of the programs of the state and central government takes place throughout the year. Now if the government or the political party who is ruling the country is involved in the election every year in different states of the country, their focus is on the election, somehow or the other the resources and their attention gets diverted from the development of the nation. So simultaneous election will help us from getting those things out of the radar. So the government has to only concentrate on election every 5 years, rest of the time they can take up the developmental work. Second thing, it will help in the administrative efficiency. During elections, the entire administrative machinery, the DC office, all the government officials are involved in election duties. So this hampers their regular office job, which involves the development of the country. Now if elections are held every 5 years only, so other time of the cycle the government can work regularly and they can ensure the development of the whole nation, right? Second thing, improvement of internal security. See, whenever there is an election, there is a huge deployment of security forces from the paramilitary forces, the police forces and other things. Now when the paramilitary or police force is involved in the election process, somehow or the other they are not getting enough time to look after the law and order situation or internal security angle which they usually looks after, right? So this elections every year somehow or other hampers the internal security of the country. So simultaneous elections every 5 years will help us ensure the internal security of the country. It will reduce the use of black money. It's a open secret that every election there is a huge circulation of black money. So every year there is an election going on somewhere or the other in one part or the other part of the country. So there is a huge circulation of black money. Now, if the elections are held only after 5 years, this will help us reduce the circulation of the black money. Okay. Third thing, another advantage. See, whenever there is an election, the government tries to draw the attention of the public or the favor of the public by declaring certain populist measures, like suppose giving some subsidy or waiving the loans, some or giving away some money to the marginalized section. So these things, why the government do is that they try to lure the public towards them. Now these things, this money in which they are using in populist measures doesn't help in the development of the country in the true sense. Now if there is an election every year, some money of the government is always towards this populist programs. Okay. Now if the election is held every 5 years, this will reduce the burden of this populist measures of the government. Another advantage is the increase in voter turnout. It has been seen that if there is an election every 5 years, simultaneous election, it draws the attention. It also increases the curiosity of the people, the inclination of the people to vote in the election. It helps in the better voter turnout. Another thing, this simultaneous election every 5 years will help us to improve the social harmony. How? See, it's a bitter truth that in India there is an election campaign. Whenever there is an election campaign, whenever there is tussle between two parties over an election, there is always an angle of caste, religion, and communal issues. Whenever there is an election campaign, you will always see the question of communities coming up, of religion coming up. So whenever there is an election, there is always polarization of the society. Now this happens every year throughout the country. There is one election or the other going on. Every time there will be polarization of the public. Now this hampers the social harmony of the nation. Now if there is a election every 5 years, it will somehow help in reduction of this politics, polarizing politics, and increase the social harmony of the nation. So these are the advantages of the one nation one election system, but at the same time you have to understand what are the disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage of the one nation one election system is that it reduces accountability. Now see, there is an election coming up in Rajasthan. So for this, the government, central government, is accountable to the people of Rajasthan. Now the central government cannot take any policy which will reduce their popularity among the masses because there is an election coming up in Rajasthan. Once the election in Rajasthan is over, suppose even if the center wins that election, they have to again gear up for the election in Madhya Pradesh. So there is always accountability to the public. They cannot take up any measures or they cannot take up any policies which are going to hamper their popularity among the people. So they are always accountable to the public. Okay. Now suppose we have a simultaneous election system in which the election to all the states and the center is held every 5 years. Now the center is accountable to the public only in the 5th year. Now suppose even if they take up all wrong policies throughout their 3 years and take up good policies in the end of their 10 years, suppose 4th and 5th year, still they can gain the popularity of the public. So they are not accountable to the public throughout the period. Okay. Thus the simultaneous system or this one nation one election system reduces the accountability of the government and might lead to autocratic tendencies. Okay. Second thing, this undermines the federal power. See, now if there is an election happening, simultaneous election in which I am voting for both the center and the state, somehow I will be more inclined towards the central politics. When I'm casting my vote, I know my vote is going to help forming of the government in the center as well as the state. My inclination will be always towards the center because that is the government which is going to control the entire nation. So somehow I am not giving much attention to my state or the regional issues. So in this way, the state governments get less importance in a simultaneous system or one nation one election system. Okay, so it is demonstrated with more regional parties. See, the for state governments like DMK in Tamil Nadu, TDP in Andhra Pradesh, Biju Janata Dal in Orissa, now this they are gaining importance because there is elections held in a different time. But if these elections were held in one single time, these regional parties would not have got that much importance. Okay, and that's why it is said that a one nation one system, one election system will undermine the federal system of the government, and this will be a disadvantage to the regional parties for the same thing. See, critics argue that the simultaneous election will hamper the prospects of regional parties as national issues will dominate over local issues. Okay, and hence the importance of the regional parties will get reduced. Okay, second thing, it is not conducive to the spirit of democracy. Critics argue is against democracy because trying to force an artificial cycle of elections. Now suppose you see the Lok Sabha election is going to happen in 2024. Now suppose you say no, we need a simultaneous election in 2024. Then what will happen? The state government of Assam, which was formed in 2022, will have to be dissolved. Yes. Similarly, the Rajasthan government, which is going to be formed this year, will again have to dissolve in 1 year itself. So if we are going to do that, if we are going to have a simultaneous system in 2024, we have to dissolve many state governments which have not even completed 1 or 2 years of their tenure. So this thing will be against the spirit of democracy because you are curtailing the right of that state government to rule for 5 years. Okay. Next thing, it will influence the choice and electoral behavior. Now whenever there is a simultaneous election, now suppose I am voting for both the center and the state, I'll always have a tendency to vote for the same party at the national and the state level. This I'm not saying out of just from an idea. This is through statistics. The research report by IDFC says that if the elections are held at 6 months interval, suppose there is a central election this month and within 6 months there is a state election in any other state, the probability of the same party to win both the elections will be more. That means whenever there is an election very in a short period of time, the voter always tends to vote for the same party. However, if the election is held at least after a gap of 6 months, this figure drops to 61%. From 77% who are voting for the same party, the percentage drops to 61%. Okay, so hence it is a proof that if there is simultaneous election, the tendency of the voter to vote for the same party at the center as well as the state is more, which is against the federal structure of the government. It will be again a threat to internal security because to held election at the center as well as all the states in the country, it will require huge amount of security forces, and if we are using all our security forces for conducting the election, it will be a threat to the internal security of the country because their normal job, which is to secure the internal security of the country, will be hampered. Okay, now again this will tamper with the democratic will. Okay, if there is a regular election going on every year, the voters get a chance to cast their vote according to what is happening, right? It's a way of expressing. See, if I'm casting a vote, it is a way of expressing my satisfaction with the government as well as the dissatisfaction of the government. Now if I don't get to exercise that right for 5 years, this is against the democratic will. Moreover, see, simultaneous election, when I'm saying, it does not include the local body poll like the panchayat elections or the municipal body elections. Now if we are conducting simultaneous election for the state and the center, and again we are conducting an election for the panchayat or the local bodies, this is again affecting the whole thing. it will have no meaning. Ki this year I am having a simultaneous election for the both center and the state, and next year I am having a urban local body election. So it's the same thing again. You're wasting your money again for election. So somehow or the other, simultaneous election will not cater to the idea which we are having. Ki we are going to save money and resources and all other things if we don't include the local bodies into its under its purview. Okay, so now you have understood what are the disadvantages as well as the advantages. Now it's up to you to analyze what if the advantages are more or the disadvantages are more. Suppose you get into this conclusion that yes, we need this system. Now even if you want this system, now is it possible to have this system in India? Now this is a big question, and hence we have to understand what are the challenges if we want to go into one nation one election system. One of the biggest challenges to go into this system, suppose today we decide that yes, we need to go into the system, the biggest challenge will be that in order to go into that system we need to at least make amendments to 5 articles. Article 83, which relates to the duration of the houses of the parliament. Article 85, which relates to the dissolution of Lok Sabha by the president. Article 172, which leads to the administration of the state legislatures. Article 174, which deals with the dissolution of state legislatures, and Article 356, which relates to the imposition of the president's rule in states. Now all these articles deals with the federal structure, that is the basic structure of the government. Now all these articles would require ratification of at least 50% of the states, and this is going to be a big hurdle for the center, the ratification of 50% of the states. Okay, so this is the biggest challenge. Next big challenge, in order to sync like we have discussed before, in order to make this system possible, we have to dissolve certain state governments before their completion of tenure. Now this is going to be a big challenge. All the state governments will want that their government should run for 5 years. Now to make them agree to dissolve their governments early, it will be a big challenge. Okay. Sorry. For instance, the term of the present Lok Sabha will go up to 2024, but elections to some of the legislatures had already taken place last year, like Chhattisgarh, MP, Rajasthan, and some are due this year, that is Haryana, Maharashtra, and Jharkhand. Now this will result in, if we want to have the simultaneous election in 2024, we have to dissolve the state legislatures within 1 or 2 years of their tenure, and this is going to be a big challenge. Next big challenge. So to conduct an election, we need huge number of EVMs, voting machines, and the VVPAT machines, at least 30 lakhs. And now to arrange such number of machines is going to be a challenge. I'm not saying this is impossible. India can make it possible, and India have the capability to make it possible, but this is going to be difficult, or it's going to be a challenge. That's it. Now there are a lot of committees who have recommended this. The commission report in 1983, it has said that let us go back to simultaneous election. Now we have already discussed this actually. The law commission in 1999 also have said it. The Parliamentary Standing Commission on Personal Public Grievance Law and Justice in 2015 also have recommended the same. Now we have understood what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. Now what is the way forward? See, what can be done is, instead of organizing all the states elections together, what we can do is we can divide it into 50-50. Now all the state elections which are nearby to 2024. Now suppose there is a state which is going to get dissolved in 2024, or there is a state which is going to get dissolved in 2025. Those states election can be held together with the center in 2024. Now suppose there is a state which is going to get dissolved in 2026 or 2027. Those states, the election to those states can be held in a later phase together. So we can have simultaneous elections twice in every 5 years, in which some states will go election in first phase, some in the second phase. That is one way which many committees have recommended and which may be feasible in our state. I'm not saying this is the only way. There might be many other ways which this can be done, but this is one of the way in which it can be done. So it's up to you. You analyze what's the best way for India to go forward. Now see, simultaneous election is an idea now which time has come because we are going to save a lot of time and money. Okay. However, since the issue is concerned with the federal structure of the constitution, it needs to be discussed and debated properly. It should not be autocratic decision by the center. All the states has to come up there. It has to be discussed thoroughly, and this will make it easier for the idea to get formalized or to get implemented. If India opts for one nation, one election, the biggest democracy, being the biggest democracy, it will set a unique example and which is going to inspire countries throughout the world. And it will make India the fourth country in the world after Belgium, Sweden, and South Africa to conduct simultaneous election. And this is going to be a big example to the whole world. Okay. So we have discussed all the nitty-gritties of the issues. It's up to you. You analyze the points and see what is the best way for India to go forward. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe our channel. Please help us to reach you all. Ask your friends to subscribe our channel. Thank you so much.